What's going on, everybody? First of all, I just want to say thanks for watching my last video and shared a few times, and apparently there was a need for it. I'm glad to be able to help. I thought that maybe this time we might as well just kind of expand on what we talked about last time and maybe do kind of a part two, if you will. One of the things that I did talk about last time that is critical in our kayak fishing sport is taking fish pictures. It's definitely a learned behavior. It takes a lot of practice. It is something that differentiates us from the bass boat world. We can't just catch it, pitch it in the live well, and forget about it. That is the way that we win, lose, cash checks. That's the way we compete. That's how we score. So I thought about a way to sort of expand on that, and I'm going to show you guys a handful of pictures of some common mistakes about what not to do. Some common mistakes that we see a lot in our sport as good ways to get your fish penalized or disqualified completely. And again, it's hard enough to catch the fish, so take good pictures. Now, taking good pictures is not hard to do, but it does take practice. And that's why I said the last video, every fish you get a chance to take a picture of, practice, practice, practice. Every tournament entity has their own set of rules, and every tournament entity likes their fish being measured a certain way. 95% of the rules, if you will, the guidelines on how you should measure fish are pretty straight across the board. There's a few that don't like touching the tail. I think KBF has even started to amend theirs to make it even more restrictive. But for the most part, most of your local trails, most of your regional trails, your bass, your Hobie, measuring fish, once you kind of get it down and you do it a certain way, it's pretty much standard across the board. That being said, if you take bad pictures, it is on you. It's not on the judge for disqualifying those. These pictures that I'm going to show you, some of them seem a little bit nitpicky. Judges are people. They have standards. Some of them are a little bit more lenient. Some of them are way more picky. And like I said, I'm not trying to scare you off from like this is some super difficult task and get ready to get all your fish disqualified. I think I've been fishing kayak tournaments for 4 years now. I have had maybe 3 or 4 pictures called into question, and most of the time I was able to have a duplicate or an alternate picture of the same fish that I was able to send in and get it accepted. So it does happen when you take bad pictures. So I am going to show you some of the pictures about what not to do. And we'll get started on those right now. Okay, so this is going to be exhibit number 1. As you can see, this picture is just incredibly grainy. You can't see anything. This happens especially whenever you're trying to deal with low light conditions. A headlamp plus a camera flash. It can happen real easily. So be mindful of that when you're taking pictures in low light conditions. This was an early in the morning picture. So this is why you take multiples and always check. This picture is going to be disqualified by every tournament organization out there. You just can't see anything. You can kind of see maybe some numbers, but this picture is going to be disqualified every single time. Okay, so this picture actually looks pretty good. The identifier is present, the mouth is closed, the hand's in a good place. You see the full board.
Unfortunately, if you look at the tail, you can see that it's elevated a little bit off of the board. You have got to have the tail flat against the board. Now in this picture, you can kind of tell because there is a shadow underneath the tail, so you can tell that it is elevated a little bit. Depending on the judge, you might be able to get away with 16.5 right here because it is touching at the 16.5 mark, but that's about all you're going to get. If the entire tail was off the board and hovering over the mark, you're probably going to get this fish completely disqualified. So this is a big no-no. Okay, so this one you might think is being a little bit nitpicky, but it's not. And the last thing you want to do is leave it in the hands of the judges. So the full bump is not pictured here. And yes, the mouth looks like it's closed and touching the board, but it's so close that if the judge decided to disqualify this fish, you would really not have a gripe. Yeah, it's the hand's in a fine place, the identifier's present, tail's flat against the board, but the bump is so close to the lip that there is a real good chance that this picture is probably going to be disqualified. And honestly, there would be nobody to blame here except for the angler taking the picture. This is a bad picture, so be sure that full bump is visible. So this one you might think might be incredibly picky, but still, this is not a great picture. The shadows on this fish make it really difficult to tell if the mouth is open or if it's fully touching the bump board. Shadows in the high sun are a killer when it comes to these pictures. So always be sure that you are in a shady place or a fully sunny place or whatever it takes to get the shadows off of the fish, because you might think it's picky, but to be honest with you, if somebody disqualified this fish, there's not really much you could say about it. It's iffy, but yeah, watch those shadows. Okay, this one, not a bad picture. Clearly see the mouth is closed, touching the bump board. Identifier is present, but I have a question. How long is this fish? It's something and a half, and you can kind of see the next number, barely, and maybe you could kind of see this number under the fish's tail, but it would just be a straight up guess on the part of the judge and you. So you're going to take a halfway decent picture, but because you didn't get the inch marks behind the tail, nobody's really going to know exactly how long this fish is. So be sure and leave a few inch marks behind the tail so that way you can clearly see the number. I'd hate for this fish, this was a good fish, I'd hate for it to get disqualified based off of something that simple. Okay, on this one, pay no attention to the ugliness of the fish. It's one of the ugliest fish I've ever caught, ever. But anyway, this is clearly a 16.5 inch fish, mouth closed, tail is flat, and everything. Now this may seem incredibly picky to you, but look where my sleeve is. The entire identifier is not visible. That is, if the rules say it must be fully visible, that's not fully visible. Again, you know, these pictures are on the anglers to take. If the judge deems this not fully visible, this is a disqualified fish. So make sure the identifier is 100% fully visible, not 98% like this one is. Okay, this is not one of my fish, but almost every tournament entity out there will not let you put your hand under the gill plate of the fish. Now, is this under the gill plate? Finger under the gill plate? You can barely see a tip of a finger underneath the tip of a gill plate. Do not leave this in the hands of the judge. Depending on the judge, they could absolutely disqualify this and have no problem doing it. You wouldn't have any gripe about it. Is it picky? Yes, but stay away from under the gills, or just be prepared for it to be disqualified. Okay, this one again, pretty picky. Now the mouth is open on this one, so this fish was rightly given a 1 inch penalty. Now on the other hand, if the rules say that the fish's eye must be completely not covered, or uncovered, however it says, this is on the line. I mean right on the line. You can tell the fish is alive. Yes, it's got a good eye. But if it says the eye must be fully visible, is this fully visible? Again, don't leave this in the hands of the judges. They could absolutely disqualify this, and there's not much you can say about it. Okay, this is just a random picture that I pulled off my phone, one of hundreds that I've had accepted over the years. As you can see, mouth is closed, touching the bump. You can see the tail flat against the board. My hand's in a good position. The identifier is fully visible. Taking fish pictures is not that difficult, but it is a learned trait, a learned art. So take multiple pictures, practice with every fish that you catch, because it doesn't take much to get one disqualified, but it also isn't that hard to take a good one. So take multiple pictures and don't leave it in the hands of the judges. That's for sure.
Okay, like I said, I'm not trying to scare you off with this. I'm not trying to make it sound more difficult than it is, but it is something you got to be aware of, because if you're not fishing kayak tournaments, there's really no reason for you to have ever practiced this or have done this. So anyway, pay attention to your fish pictures. Take multiple pictures. Be aware of the sun shade. Be aware of low light conditions. All that kind of stuff. And like I said, practice, practice, practice. And I've already got an idea about what to do maybe for part 3 and part 4. So we'll see how that goes, see how this one goes. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed it. And as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.